What's up, hobby friends? My name is Casey, and this is eBay Miniature Rescues. This week, we're gonna rescue a pretty sweet mini, and I think start a new army. So I saw this mini on eBay. The first thing that jumps out at me is the real nice looking silhouette. He has a good pose, and it looks like it could be a really cool character model. For some reason, I thought this was from the Blackstone Fortress set. I think because I've actually purchased a mini from this seller before to do a rescue. Link at the top of the screen if you missed that one. Alas, this mini is not from that set. He's a Chaos Sorcerer from the Dark Vengeance box set for Warhammer 40,000. Either way, the mini has some potential, so let's give him a bath in a sonic cleaner filled with LA's Totally Awesome and get this guy cleaned off. After a 15-minute cycle, I scrubbed him off and managed to get pretty much everything down to bare plastic. From here, I glued him onto a new base and got him ready for some paint. First off, I'll prime the mini black and follow that up with a selective zenithal highlight with white ink. There is an absolute ton of trim on this guy's armor, so I want to use this zenithal to give us those nice gradients. Because I went over the entire model with white ink, I need to put some shadows back in, and I'll use purple to pre-shade for our next color. The purple will mix with our base coat and give us a really nice warm shadow. I'll follow that up with some transparent red ink from FW. This stuff is so nice. Just a few coats, trying to be patient to build up that color, and you have a super nice looking red that takes on all of that light and dark info that we laid down a minute ago. It mixes especially nice with the purple pre-shade and gives us an awesome looking shadow. This is a great way to batch red chaos models, and not to make them look like blood angels. Next up, I'll be using Vallejo aluminum to fill in all of the trim, and oh boy, there is a ton of it. Nothing to do but grit your teeth and paint bravely. Best advice I can give for trim is to use a color that covers in one coat. Vallejo metal colors tend to do that, as well as the liquid color, but my favorite go-to for trim is specifically Vallejo Game Air aluminum, or steel. It's bright, the mix is just right for doing a lot in one go, and it almost always covers in one coat. After the trim is complete, it's time to darken the model and begin the highlighting process. In this case, I used a liberal coating of Tamiya panel liner to wash the model. This will darken everything down quite a bit, unify the trim to the armor with the existing color, and gives us those nice darks in the recesses. In order to bring out the color in the model, I'll use a makeup sponge and begin to reveal the paint underneath the wash. This becomes the roadmap for highlighting and where we want the focal points for the model. Once the wash is dry, it's time to start filling in smaller details. I'll start with the head by laying down a basic light skin tone. I'm going to be making this guy a little bit crazy, so I'll take some achromatic contrast paint and glaze that into the skin as well. The blue gives it a nice cyborgy feel without being too gross about it. Slowly, I'll work in lighter and lighter tones to highlight the skin. Seeing as there are multiple colors in this skin tone, there are small lines that start to jump out at me where the colors meet on the model. I'm going to use those lines as an opportunity to bring in a little freehand. I know that seems weird, but roll with me for a second. There are other examples that can explain this a little easier. Essentially, being a little more candid about it, when you start to paint and you start to stipple and glaze and layer in colors, if you're being somewhat haphazard about it, you can end up getting little lines throughout your paint job. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's where you didn't necessarily connect a color, or the blend wasn't exactly perfect where two colors met. The point is that you start to get these kind of imperfections in your organic skin tones, or even if it isn't organic, it's some kind of machined part. You can start to see these lines as some kind of shadow that almost represents battle damage or something like that. So the idea is you can put lines underneath those lines and make it look like there is more depth in the model than there actually is. So that's what I'm trying to do on the skin tone, and especially on the cape. Using small lines throughout gives you texture. It gives you something else on top of your model that wasn't really there before. And that's really where this whole thing comes in, of letting the model speak for itself, letting the model tell you what it wants to be. Because you're not really going to know until you start doing things on the model. You're going to start wet blending and making decisions, and things are just going to start to dry in interesting ways, or you're going to use a wash and it's going to stain something in a way that allows you to put more effort into that area, and not necessarily in a bad way. The cloak on this guy, for example, I didn't spend that much time on it, but there's a lot going on because I let the cape kind of decide what it wanted to be. I started to paint. Things started to present themselves. I started to exploit those things and accentuate them, and it became something else. And now it looks, in my opinion, pretty cool. Like, I think it looks really cool. So essentially what I'm saying is, when you're going about a paint job, there are a lot of things that are kind of paint by numbers, but when you really want to get down to it, you want to start to build upon that and make your models more unique, you just need to let the sculpt start to speak for itself. You need to let yourself discover those areas and find those small details that you can accentuate. And I think that's really when you're going to start to find something unique about your painting, your specific way of doing the same thing that we all try and do. Like, what are you going to find in your model? It's not going to be necessarily the same thing that I find. And I think that's the fascinating part about this. This model wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but as always, it's really great to just sit down and paint a model and see where that model is going to take you. At the end of the day, what we're left with is a pretty cool looking mini, and honestly, that just makes me really happy. pretty excited about mail time this week. And like I said, starting a new army. And that's basically what this is. So why don't we head over to the desk? We will check out what is inside this box. Okay, so the first thing you actually need to know about this is that I paid $160 for essentially most of an army. Now, there might be some other things. I don't know who Clint is. There might be some other things that we have to get to pick up, but for the most part, I think we have a lot in here. Part of that $160 was also the book. So now we have some assembly of an army and the book to go with it. I've also recently purchased several models just because that technically go with this army, including a random Morghast Archai or whatever it's called I found for $8. So we're going to include that too. And on top of that, I brought this up a few episodes ago. We're going to throw in Nagash. So this should be more than 2,000 points right here. This is what we're going to be focusing on in the future once we're done with some of the other projects that we have, you know, on the desk. So now that we've started unboxing, my initial thoughts on this are I'm pretty excited. The OCR Bone Reapers are a pretty cool newer army. And I think having something strong, like not super model heavy with Nagash as being, you know, what, 750 points or some crazy amount. It's almost half the army. And so it's almost going to be a more for fun, super weird, I don't even know, probably not competitive in any way. It doesn't even matter though. I want it to have fun. So, you know, we're going to unwrap the rest of these, see what else is in here. I think it's mostly more tech guard, but there's also some fun stuff in there. So I'm going to unwrap that. We're going to put everything together, see what there actually is in this army, maybe start building a list, figure out if there are some small components, some other one-off models that might just make the synergies better or something. Let me know in the comments if there is anything in particular that this army could use, you know, just cause. So all in all, some pretty interesting things coming up on this channel. Still a lot to finish that we've been working on. And I think that about wraps it up for this week. So yeah, thank you again for joining me on another eBay Miniature Rescues. If you enjoyed something about this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, as it really helps out the channel. Once again, I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video.